the tiny house industry, whether you want to do it all yourself or a portion of it yourself. This gives everybody kind of a step one, step two, step three, and on and on and on to where we end and your imagination and creativity begins. So depending on how much you want to do and how much you want an expert or a professional to do, that's entirely up to you, your budget, and your level of skill. So we start with a basic trailer frame that's got a belly pan on the bottom. The idea behind this is to maximize our interior height, in case anybody doesn't already understand. You're limited to 13 foot 6 inches overall height. That means you have X number of inches and feet vertically to be able to live, walk through, and sleep in. So when we came up with this design, there was a gentleman by the name of Byron Fears. Does anybody know Byron?
Yes.
Simplicity Tiny Homes. Does anybody know that company?
Yes.
He's a character, but we love him. So he came walking in one day about 3 years ago into our office and said, I want you to build a tiny house trailer. And we had heard of him. We'd seen the show once or twice, so we kind of had an idea. And he gave us a little back of the napkin kind of sketch. And we saw what the industry had currently been offering to the clientele that we're going to build a house on a trailer. So we saw some things we liked, we saw some things that we didn't necessarily like as well, and we wiped the slate clean and went back to the drawing board from ground zero to develop a true foundation for a tiny home. The idea that you can take a car hauler or a utility trailer or something like that and build a house on it is good in theory, but in real world application with the types of forces, the weight, where the weight is distributed on the trailer, it doesn't make sense, and it hasn't, and it will continue not to. Laws of physics don't generally change very much. So what we did is we took a basic iteration of an equipment skid from oil and gas industry. We borrowed that from one of our other clients and retrofitted that to be a trailer. So we actually put the cross members at 16 inches on center, just like a foundation for a house will be. We insulate the middle of it so that we don't give up space inside. And then we started looking at how can we make this easy for the pro and the DIY novice to be able to build their house on. One of the first things we talk about so we put the belly pan on the bottom of the trailer so that we can support insulation. This is an uninsulated trailer. This is an insulated trailer. That trailer that some people are sitting on is a trailer that's insulated and decked. So that's ready to start standing walls on. Depending on how you guys want to go about it, depends on your skill level and your budget. We can do these phases. We also do steel framing. So at your leisure, feel free to tromp through the mud. Go take a look at some of the steel frame housings projects that we do with Volstruck down in Texas. But one of the biggest questions that we get asked almost every single time, and this is what I spoke to inside, was why the space? Why the gap? Why not fill it all the way up? Okay, so the reason we don't fill this all the way up is because we don't want you to have a mushroom garden under your floor. You have to have airspace in there for it to be passive and breathe. So it'll breathe through the seams, it'll breathe through the flooring material, it'll breathe up through the walls. You can't fill it up all the way to the top. One, it's cost prohibitive. It's a law of diminishing returns, so to speak. So every single time you fill this up with 1 inch, you get on an insulation factor of R7. So closed cell spray foam is R7 per inch, but it has kind of a bell curve to it. If you put 2 inches, that's an R14. If you put 3 inches, that's an R21. 4 inches is an R28. So that would mean that if you put 10 inches, that would be an R70. But that's not really the case. It does taper off after about 4.5 inches. So you're throwing away money after about 4 to 4.5 inches. So we stop at that, and it is inconsistent because it is an expanding foam. This was professionally done by our contractor. We've been very happy with their work. We've asked them to supply us with a non-VOC, which is volatile organic chemicals. If anybody doesn't know what all that stuff means, that is toxic fumes. We don't want any of that stuff in your home, and I don't think anybody here does either. So this is all made out of sugar beet starch. You can eat it. It's not going to taste very good. Not very filling, but it is a 100% organic product, and it does still have that R7 per inch of insulation factor that you want. It also makes the floor very dense, feels more like concrete, less like a trailer. So at your leisure, I encourage everybody to please take a stroll up and down that floor so you can feel what your house is going to sit like once you start building on it.